Welcome back to just another solar podcast with Luke Beattie. That's me, Karl Jensen.
Luke, how you going this afternoon?
Yeah, good, thank you. And Nigel Morris.
G'day, fellas. I'm here too.
And before we jump into some topics, I thought we might introduce our guests straight up because there's a few topics that we're going to be going into they might want to add into today. As special guests from supply partners, we have Lliam Ricketts and Israel Vogel. G'day, guys.
Hello, crew. How are we?
G'day. Thanks for having us.
So not everyone's going to have the vision here, but you guys are in some amazing studio you've set up with some crazy lighting, microphones and equipment. What's going on there?
Yeah, no, it's pretty exciting here at Supply Partners head office in Queensland, Brisbane. We've got a whole new kind of marketing studio we've set up. We're doing a lot of unboxing and technical videos in here, but we're trying to embark on our own podcast as well at the moment, mate, called the Solar Coaster. So hopefully that thing gets a few people listening to it. But primarily we've been using this studio for videos on unboxing and products. But yeah, we've got one of the neon lights behind us and a few crazy lights and some Rode mics. So we've definitely got the look going on here.
Yeah. So which channels can people check it out on?
It'll be through Spotify. We'll definitely be going for a strong video focus. So we're hoping people can have a look at us on YouTube and engage with, the interviews that are occurring through YouTube.
Awesome.
Joe Rogan, look out.
I don't know whether we're going that far, but we're giving it a crack.
No, very good. Now, normally before we kick in, we would do just a basic wrap-up of what's been going on, but I thought I'll bring you guys in because obviously, Lliam, you're well-known and well-experienced, so feel free to chip in just for this first part, and then we've got some pretty meaty stuff to jump into. So the first thing we wanted to touch on was that the Fully Charged conference was on in Sydney last week, Nige. What happened there?
Sure was. 2-day conference targeted at consumers, targeted at electric vehicles, but of course it wraps up inevitably a whole lot of stuff around renewables. 15,000 people paid $60 a head to get in. Imagine that at a solar show, right? About $1 million on the table to help get it off the ground. I think the long and the short of it is it was a little bit sparse. There was sort of the mega booths from the big electric vehicle or the MGs and BYDs and whatnot had some very, very big booths. Not all the vehicle manufacturers were there because I think everyone was kind of the view that it's the first show. How's it going to go? 15,000 pretty good. I think everyone was very, very buoyant after it. There was, everything from Formula E weapons. There was a Mercedes Formula E there, which was just, eye candy. There were a ton of electric motorcycles there. You could test ride electric motorcycles, electric cars, electric bicycles, electric skateboards, you name it, it was there. The sessions that went on, the Q&A sessions, went nonstop. They were really, really good. I didn't get to many because I was busy doing other stuff, but I was one about electric motorcycles and got to test ride the latest Energica Xperia. It was a fantastic event. And what was really interesting was how many solar companies were floating around. The guys from Penrith Solar had a huge booth in conjunction with Enphase right at the door, which was, no doubt they picked up a ton of leads because every single customer who came in, they were coming there to look at EVs, but every single one of them said, well, I've got solar or I'm going to get solar. So it's ripe for the picking for solar companies. So good on Enphase and Jake from Penrith for monopolising on that. And I think, next year is just going to be bigger and better. So, yeah, good fun.
Nigel, just quickly, Tesla notorious for not turning up and doing advertising and these sorts of events. Were they there?
No, Tesla Owners Club was there in force. So Pete from SolarA was there with the rest of the guys from the Tesla Solar Owners Club, but that was it from the Tesla perspective. There were a lot of there were a lot of trucks and vans and camper vans and conversion dudes.
Out of interest, Nigel, did Rivian have a stand there, mate?
No.
Rivian four-wheel drive?
No.
I'm a little bit of a fan of those, mate, so I'm keen to see them hit the shore.
No, not yet. And look, I think Fully Charged around the world will typically pull like 100,000 to these shows, right? Really, really big numbers. So I think next year, book a spot.
And what did you present on, out of curiosity?
Electric motorbikes.
Just generally, have you got a topic or you?
No. I was on a panel discussion with Fonzarelli and Savage, the two Australian companies who are doing an awesome job. Fonzarelli do scooters, Fonsmoto. and Savage are just about to release their sort of sport premium electric motorcycle. And oh, bloody hell, I can't remember who else was on the panel now. That's embarrassing, but there was someone else on the panel. So we just talked generally about the opportunity for electric two-wheelers as a part of the world of EV, and all the advantages and benefits that two-wheelers bring, and actually how it is an enormous segment, particularly in Asia, as everyone knows. Electric two-wheelers are actually leading the revolution for electric vehicles. So it's a really important segment in terms of scale.
It's funny you should say that, Nigel. I was on holiday in Vietnam last week, and I stopped into a showroom at a shopping centre with VinFast, and their SUV size thing with 80 kilowatt hours and 300 kilowatts was around $75,000, $80,000. But the real highlight was their scooter, which was $1,200 Aussie. And at the end of the day, if there's not 5 million scooters in Ho Chi Minh City, I'm a monk. It's just awesome, the market. And for $1,200, I thought it was just awesome. Obviously, the electric bike that you've got and the off-road bike that I've got are worth shitloads more than that. So for $1,200, I just thought, wow, that's amazing. They're going to transform
that entry-level market for Southeast Asia is literally hundreds of millions of vehicles. And they want to get all those tuk-tuks, all those little scooters that can carry 6 to 8 people and as many chickens as you want. That is the big scale market that everyone's going after to crack open the scale. And of course, everyone will benefit from that, because if they can build those in hundreds of millions, the technological benefits will flow. The lessons will be learned, as of course, if you try and do an electric vehicle for $1,200, you've got some lessons to learn along the way.
But I mean, that's the equivalent to the ICE scooters. If you go over there, they're around $1,200 to $1,600 Aussie. If you want to buy a Honda Vario or something similar, which you see booting all around Denpasar, Ho Chi Minh, any Asian city really. So very cool.
Are they that cheap?
On parity. Yeah, they are, man. Yep.
Next time I go to Bali, I'll buy one instead of rent it.
Yeah. It's the only way to get around. Exactly. Now, some really big news as well this week is that the CEC has said that they're no longer interested in running the solar installer accreditation scheme. So they've been doing that for quite some time. That's some really big news. What are your thoughts, guys?
Look, I think it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, the first point is going to be who's entering the space, who's put submissions in, and obviously that will come to light as the CER puts out their further statements on the point. But some of the points that the CEC put forward as, I guess, what has been somewhat burdensome in running that scheme, how are the new players going to handle that, I suppose? What are they going to provide to industry? I think it's pretty ripe, really, when you look around at some of the groups that we all interact with, such as Solar Cutters on Facebook and that sort of thing, the kind of discussions that happen there and maybe what installers are looking for. It's been interesting to see a few people talking about the concept of the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. It's sort of a very big unknown space, so which also provides a lot of positive opportunity too. So going to be very keen to keep an eye on that one.
Because the CEC has copped a lot of stick for quite some time on Solar Cutters pages and industry pages. Maybe some of it fairly, some of it unfairly. But yeah, very interesting. I've heard whispers that the Smart Energy Council Masters electricians might be in the mix there, but I suppose time's gonna tell.
And how
can't wait to see what happens here and who throws their hat in the ring, because the CEC have not made very much money off this scheme, despite what all the rumour mill might have you believe. It hasn't been a money-making exercise for them, the accreditation scheme. It's very complex, it's very time-consuming, and there's a huge number of people and resources behind what they do there. Whether you like the CEC or not, or think they're doing a good job or not, at the end of the day, what they're doing is just administering the rules that ultimately, guess who designed them? Solar people. The solar industry actually helped create that scheme right back in the day, and it's just evolved into what it is. So whether someone can come in, I think it's a great idea to think maybe someone can come in with a fresh lens. Maybe there's some opportunity for improvement and efficiency and everything else. I don't know that there is, but the one thing I really, really, really hope, and this is probably going to inflame some people, but I really hope only one organisation gets it, because if you split the workload and the responsibility and the liability across multiple organisations, you diminish the opportunity for keeping it economically efficient, which is a big issue. Got to keep it as cheap as you can. And you also open up the opportunity for disputes. If someone doesn't get through on accreditation with one organisation, can they go to the other organisation and simply apply to them? So the one wish that I have is that whoever they appoint is just one organisation. That's my only wish. I don't think the industry is big enough to justify multiple organisations doing it.
Hey, Nigel, I'd be interested to know what you would say as well to the general industry, especially installers, with regards to getting involved in some of these processes. Like, it's easy to obviously be a backseat driver, with any of these kind of schemes that need to be run. And obviously we're a bit more invested than that as installers, is that, the scheme is running our businesses to a certain extent and that kind of thing. But we're talking to Bobby McKibben recently from Solar Integrity and AWISE, and I know she's had a fair bit of involvement as well at different levels in having some input to what the CEC does and even training units and things like that. And I believe that you've had some sort of experience in that regard. How would you encourage people, specifically installers and those who are under the accreditation scheme, as to what sort of opportunities are available to them to have input to things that they are frustrated about and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting one, and I'll try and not to bang on about this for too long, but at the end of the day, everyone who's got a solar company's main focus is running their solar company. It needs to be, right? You need to stay on the game. You need to stay focused on keeping your business healthy and profitable and growing and everything else. And there's a lot to do in that. So you can dive into the rabbit warren of, standards or accreditation rules and regulations and the nuances that are in that, or the approved retailer program, or any number of committees run by the Clean Energy Council, or indeed the Smart Energy Council or others, SEER. So there are no end of opportunities for people to be involved. What I would say is that, it's worth getting involved, but what you're going to have to understand is that nothing happens fast, right? It's a long game that we're playing, and changing rules, changing regulations, changing accreditation, or changing something like the ASR, which is connected with the ACCC at the extreme level, takes a long, long time. So it's a long game that you need to play. I encourage everyone to do it, to join a committee, to invest something back in the industry. And at SEER last week, there was a record crowd, sold out crowd at SEER in New South Wales, 170 people there. And there were a number of people, lots of opinions and views about this topic which came up. And everyone was encouraged to join, or to join the committee, or to sign up to a panel. And they all went, oh, well, I'm too busy for that. Well, righto, shut the fuck up then. Get on board.
They've got the time to jump on a keyboard for 2 seconds and to throw rocks.
It's lazy. It's lazy, really. It's really easy to just throw a rock without diving into the minutiae and having the longer and investing time and energy over a long game. You look at the people who've been involved in standards and trying to get the standards right. They've been doing that for decades, right? Decades. Now, I don't want to blow it out of proportion, but it is not. You can't walk into these things and expect things to change overnight. You've got to invest time. Full credit to people like Bobby and so many others who have invested enormous amounts of time over the years being involved in these panels and committees and various other things. I've done the same. It is a long game that you've got to play. But you know what? Nothing's going to change if you sit there chucking rocks and whine and moan and carry on and spout bullshit when you don't know the real facts of what's going on. So if you're really unhappy with something, you think something needs to change, get involved, invest your time, invest your money, make the industry better.
Here. There's another example of that happening at the moment. There's some working groups coming out of the ground right now on panel recycling. So I know I've been invited into a group, I think it's run by the Smart Energy Council, the one I've just been invited to, which is around panel recycling. So it's another example. I saw the list. There would have been at least 20 people in there. But as you said, Nigel, if people later in the piece come back in and throw rocks at what's been created but didn't actually jump in and become part of that group, even though they were offered the chance, then, it's really their own fault.
Now, that's a good segue, Liam, because Nigel and I were discussing the solar stewardship program and this pilot that they're doing in Queensland a week and a half ago, Nigel, and we said that's going to be a really good topic for us to cover. So we're looking at, someone passionate about it who has a knowledge top to bottom, not necessarily a vested interest, but someone passionate to come on. We're discussing who we get. Nigel, you did some digging and jumped down that rabbit hole. How'd you go?
It was really interesting, actually. So I've got a contact who is very, very senior in the clean energy regulator. So the first thing I did was ring my contact and said, "What's going on with recycling? You guys are involved in this, blah, blah, blah." And he said, stewardship, the stewardship panel. You got to go to this webpage. And I got an introduction to this person. And because, as you and I were saying, Luke, there's a number of companies out there. And I think I did a bit of research on this 6 or 9 months ago now. There's like 9 or 10 different companies out there who claim to be doing or able to do solar recycling in Australia already, right? You can Google it and you can find 9 or 10 companies very, very quickly. But when it comes to actual stuff happening, it's less clear. And there's been a lot of press about this. There's been 2 or 3 articles just by complete coincidence in the last week or so since we talked, Luke, about this very issue as well. And it highlighted the fact that, there's not very much value in this. That, the material that you can extract back out of recycling a solar panel is very, very limited.
I think, the discussions we had, and my understanding is that if you want to get up to 85, 86% recycling, so you're talking the alley and the basic stuff, that's easy and cheap to do. Yep. Obviously not taking into account the logistics of bringing them back from sites and taking them to plants and so forth. Yep. But it's when you really want to get to your mid-90s and 90% plus, the cost goes up and what you recover is less and less.
That's right. And in fact, I've got a friend who's been, running a solar recycling business, an old solar pioneer, actually. He's been in the game for 35 years in the US, and he runs a solar recycling business in the US and has really battled. And the only way they got it to work was by getting a levy put on all solar panels. It's the only way. You can't extract enough value out of it.
Nigel, is that because the byproduct that comes off it, they're not able to get enough money when reselling that byproduct? Is that the issue?
Yep. The raw materials aren't worth that much. And of course, as the cost of PV goes down, the raw materials get harder. And of course, if I saw the number the other day, it was there's $7 billion per year worth of silicon that could potentially be recycled back out of these secondhand modules. So there's a bit of a business opportunity there. But it's not really commercially viable for anyone to set up the kind of facilities that we need. And the article about Australian recycling was saying exactly the same. So going back to the stewardship issue, the federal government actually got on top of this issue and said, right, we've got to form a stewardship thing to try and drive this through. And they put out a sort of, it was like a request for tender. They basically invited people to come in and join up for this stewardship program and try and form something together. And you look on their website and the net result of it all was that they couldn't cut a deal. And I actually got in touch with the person who I was told was sort of pretty fundamental in that program, and their response was bureaucratic, shall we say.
I think that's an understatement, Nigel. Look, I saw said email.
It's a real challenge. And ironically, there's a lot of crap solar out there, but there's not enough to make it a viable recycling industry quite yet. So I think half the challenge is going to be, we've got to just find ways to accumulate and get the value out we can that's easy and simple right now. And actually, this came up at SEA last week in New South Wales, where there's a couple of entities. Luke, you mentioned one in WA. There's another one in Queensland who actually are saying, look, instead of recycling, we're going to take these, less than ideal or old panels that have been pulled off, and we're just going to send them to developing countries, and we're going to use them on bore pumps, and we're going to use them in villages where it doesn't matter if the output's half, it's still going to run a light or charge a phone or do something good for people and change their lives. So there's a whole lot of different ways that you can look at this problem, but it is a real challenge.
100%, Nigel. So good mate of mine, Craig at Clean NRG over in Perth, his son has a house in Cebu in the Philippines, and he's been sending containers of otherwise not required panels in Australia over to Cebu for some time. And literally they give them away and people treat them like absolute gold. So whilst I disagree with sending panels that are actually stuffed, operational panels going to third world countries and being given away, these people, it really can transform their lives. and to be able to give them away is just an amazing opportunity. If they've got nothing else, it's a great, it's a magnificent thing.
But just to be devil's advocate here, I think it's great. We have dealt with some of those guys before and they repurpose panels. You could argue that you're also pushing down the end of life responsibility overseas where it's even less likely to have, good stewardship there. So look, maybe it's a multifaceted approach.
At the end of the day, Luke, whilst I hear that, very poor countries are well known for being exceptionally good at recycling stuff. They're probably better at recycling it than us. And at the end of the day, we've just said, the value of the materials is quite low and therefore it's difficult to make a buck doing it in Australia. So therefore, if we strip the panel frame off and the electrical connections and we run the rest through a shredder and use it as road base, the same as any other or lots of other recycled glass products, well, so be it. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Very good.
I mean, for context, we haven't worked out how to recycle plastic in Australia yet, right? So, it's worth us pushing on these things and having a high ambition and high stewardship goals. It's really worth, the investment and the time, but we've got to be realistic about what's achievable too.
So just to put the call out there, if there is someone very passionate out there who has a very good knowledge on this topic or someone, please reach out. It's something that we want to go into deeper. But with today's guests, I think it's quite timely. We posted the last episode with Sophie and I've been inundated with feedback regarding two things. The first thing is where she suggested salespeople shouldn't be getting commissions. So all of the salespeople reached out to me, texted, WhatsApped, called me and said, this is ludicrous. How else do we do it? But the other interesting topic that there's been lots of feedback on is on the idea that solar salespeople should have some form of accreditation. Now, Lliam and Israel, you guys have got a bit of a story which I'd like you to share about what you guys are pushing into. But in the context of that, could you tie it in with that topic of solar sales accreditation?
Yeah, definitely, mate. I had to listen to that episode and I'm also very passionate about what Sophie was talking about. I actually saw Sophie's article she did for the Eco Generation magazine about 12 months ago on this exact topic, which, got me motivated to look at what we're actually doing now, and I'll tie into that story in a moment. But I love the example she gave, which was she could take somebody off the street, teach them how to use near maps, and they could be selling a solar system for a business later that afternoon. And I always sing the example that somebody could be selling used cars yesterday, and I could have them working in a business today selling a $30,000 solar and battery investment to a homeowner, or a $50,000 off-grid investment to someone on a property, or selling $1 million solar PV and renewable energy investment to a business without any type of formal qualifications. So to tie into the story a little bit, about 2.5 years ago, we were whiteboarding an idea in our office called Certified Sales Consultant, because I was very frustrated with that hole in the market myself, very passionate about it. I feel there needs to be some level of professional development for people that are selling. So we were concepting up an idea to have non-nationally accredited course and modules online, which people had to do and show that they've done that professional development and that they have some understanding. They'd get a badge and they'd at least be able to go out when doing a presentation and show the person they're putting the proposal to that I do understand what I'm doing here. I've done some professional development. That idea sat up on the whiteboard and we had to keep running our business, and we got busy. But then when the new training units got released on the 21st of December last year, and we had a look into them, and we were already had Israel coming on board. I think he already handed his notice into Queensland TAFE where he was running the solar and battery courses. And I rang him up and said, mate, we had a look at these courses, and there's actually modules in there now for people that are non-electricians, people that are salespeople. And even more excitingly, there's now a pathway for those people to become CEC accredited designers. So there's people in our industry that prior to the requirements changing, where you essentially needed to be an electrician or an engineer, or actually in Sophie's example, she went through all those different modules to be able to do it even during that difficult period. But many years ago, people like Daniel Sheehan, who used to work with us, who works for Fronius, or Jack Longy Long, for example, they're people that have their CEC design certificate, and they did that way back before those requirements were there. But what's changed now is there's new pathways for people to become CEC accredited designers without being electricians, and that's, salespeople is an example of that. So you're having Israel Vogel come on from Queensland TAFE. He was running the solar and battery courses there. When we were initially looking at this business model halfway through 2022, we were purely looking at design and install courses and battery accreditation courses. That's what we were originally looking at doing. But then when the 21st of December came along, and it kind of matched up with this passion I have, similar to Sophie's, we're pumped and we're really focused on this new area of training is what we're doing here.
It really is a passion of Liam's too. It's a bit of Tom Cruise on the couch type passion. Actually, what he didn't tell you, the way he loved that episode that you did with Sophie there, he was screaming at the car stereo. I'd hate to have been following along behind him on the highway, but he was like, that's my jam, so.
Well, I think you were also saying in that podcast, like, it'd be good if there were those accreditations out there. And this stuff only just came out the 21st of December. So, yeah, I was yelling at my speakers going, no, there is solutions now. It's just no RTO's released any modules that cover it yet. They are brand new. Israel's busy writing the courses for us to release in that area. I know other RTOs will be as well, but we're yet to see one that you can enroll for and do today. We're hoping to have one of the first ones out there, but we look forward to seeing heaps of these RTOs out there.
Will there be other modules they have to do? Surely, I mean, if you're going to have to do string design and do other technical things in place of doing basic electric modules, what would you need to study to get your accreditation?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the roadmap for us. We're starting off with the most initial front end sort of courses based on sales and site survey as two separate actual nationally recognised training units. But also on top of that, we're adding in our own non-accredited short courses to fill in what we see as the gaps, basically in the solar and energy storage basics of how these things interact with each other, as well as some of those ethical, importantly, ethical side of sales. And I was going to say, to speak to your question before, Luke, as well, about whether it should be an accreditation even, the sales side of things is obviously a bit of a prickly sort of topic in industry, like we've already touched on with the existing accreditations. There's a lot of argy-bargy about that as well. But ultimately, it's a bit different in some of those basic examples that Liam gave there before, selling cars, used car salesman, the good old one that often gets drawn into it. It's like this is a far more complex product that's being sold. And I'm sure all of us have stories that we've heard of before where installers have turned up to site on a day to install a system that has been sold and virtually designed by somebody the day before who could have been their very first sale in this industry too. So that's where we got to weigh up, is a full-on accreditation required or not? Well, at least something that's going to bring in that quality assurance to the people who are really, essentially designing these systems, at least in the front end of it before they pass it on for a designer and installer to look over it. So there will be follow-up after that. As I say, we're kicking off with just the sales and site survey units to begin with, but then the beauty of these brand new training units and the pathways is that we've had disseminated from 6 or 7 different training units, which Liam talked about there before. People like Sophie, who are incredibly astute in industry, have gone to the effort. And I've seen that when I was working at TAFE. We had a very, very select and small group of people who went to that effort. 6 or 7 training units, thousands of dollars, months of study to actually get to that level where, okay, now they can do their solar design course or they can do their battery design course and go on and apply for accreditation. But that's now all housed in one unit, applying electrical principles to renewable energy design. So that will sort of come after what we're talking about kicking off with the sales and site survey units. They can go on and do that, apply electrical principles to renewable energy design unit, and that then gives them the springboard to go into Grid Connect solar design and apply for their accreditation.
I'm going to jump in here and throw you guys a challenge. We had a chat about this the other day, and I love what you guys are doing this, and I love the idea of helping to educate particularly the newer people in the industry. And we've got a bunch of new people, like all businesses. You've always got new people coming in, right? We've got newer people who are less experienced. They don't even know, they've never seen a switchboard. They've never done any of that basic stuff. So, support, for example, our operations and support people, they could use some of this. Some of our newer salespeople could use some of this and really get some fundamentals in there. And I heard from Liam the other day that you guys are building that in, which is wonderful. But, I reckon the biggest challenge that you guys have got, and I'll lay it right down here for you right now, is that the people who listen to this podcast or who will sign up for your training course are not the fucking problem. The problem is the call center people who are in another country, who, you know, are run by big organizations, or the people who are in organizations that don't participate in trade shows or don't participate in the industry actively. They are our biggest problem. And it's finding a way to reach those people. Yeah, I'll get on a high horse here, but I cold call companies. I follow the links on Facebook every now and again and click the link and call, and people ring me and try to sell me shit. And it drives me crazy what these people say to me. You know, the best one I had last year.
That's essentially a desktop site survey, what you're talking about there. So if there's somebody in a call center overseas, they're doing a desktop site survey is essentially what they're doing. And the way to get rid of that, Nigel, is a difficult one. But I think one way is most people in our industry, most end users are out there getting at least 2 quotes, so getting a couple of quotes. If the decent companies or the second company has got a consultant that wants to go out and see these people and actually look at their energy needs, they should be saying to these homeowners, hey, if you're getting a quote off somebody else, that's fine, but make sure that they understand how to do a site survey. If they're not coming to your property, they're probably still doing a satellite measure up of your roof, getting a photo of your switchboard, but do they understand what they're looking at? And making sure that people have some type of nationally recognised qualification, and in this case, it's a site survey course. But at some stage, I think we're going to have a lot more people out there that are selling that will be designers, and I think that's going to separate. That's really going to separate the quality of salespeople out there. If somebody comes into a house or is speaking to somebody looking at solar for their home, and they can say, look, I'm actually able to sign off on this design, what the installer turns up with on site will be, in most cases, what's going to go in at your house, opposed to not being appropriate.
Yep.
That's going to improve.
Look, you go for it, guys. You absolutely go for it. I mean, the clown I had on the phone, I live on a side of a hill, and my roof is effectively 3 stories high. And when he said, "Yep, we can be there in a week. Yep, it'll cost you, $4,000 to put 1 million kilowatts on your roof. Don't worry about it. Everything's good. Don't worry about the shading. That'll be fine. We've got shade compensation and blah blah blah." I said, "Oh, okay. Now listen, I had some guys here working on the gutters recently. They had to put this big scaffolding up. Are you going to have to put a scaffold up?" And he said, No, we don't have to do scaffolding. We're exempt from that." And I said, "Oh, really? Okay, that's cool. How are you guys going to be safe? Because I'd hate to be I'd work from home. I'd hate to see some guy plummet off my 3-story roof onto the rock ledge in front of my house and hurt themselves. That'd be terrible." And he said, "No, our guys are really good. Don't worry about it." So it's those nuances.
Yeah.
And customers don't know what they don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, this guy was going to sell me 10 kilowatts for $4,000. And it was going to be done in a week. And my bill was high. So, if I was Joe Smith, I don't know what I don't know. So, I really encourage you guys to dive deep on this and to really,
go one step further, mate. And it's definitely something, we're endeavouring to do. We're trying to make sure what we bring out is not just meeting ASQA requirements and meeting what, our RTO compliance partner needs to deal with, or what Israel needs to meet when writing the courses, but we're looking at these professional short courses and filling in the gaps as well, as you're saying, and looking at areas we don't think are covered by these new units and packaging them in. So if somebody, for example, does with our new arm of our business, New Energy Training, if they were to do the site survey course for PV and battery storage systems, with that, they automatically get a solar and energy storage essentials and a solar and energy storage sales professional short course as an automatic inclusion that they have to do to basically even get the nationally recognised course. So what we're trying to do is say, if somebody's done a course with us and they've done the site survey course, they always are going to have done these additional courses that we believe are filling the gaps. And, we're building a working group at the moment. So Nigel, I know you're passionate about this, mate. I'll invite you onto our working group, mate, if you'd like to have some input on this. But we're trying to better those courses we're doing. We're still to put ours out. So, Nigel, if you've got more input there, mate, we're all ears.
Never short of an opinion, mate.
Yeah. But you're exactly right. It's an excellent point. Sorry, Karl. Nigel, because we hear oftentimes, how many times we bellyached about, again, the existing accreditation schemes, right? How many guys do you hear from who are like, we're out there trying to do the best, we've got experience, and yet all these rules and regs just keep ratcheting up on us, and they see it as more onerous responsibility for them and not enough teeth that are catching the bad guys, so to speak. So it's an ongoing challenge. You're exactly right, that we've got to, as an industry, try and rally around to do better.
Yeah, my 2 cents here is pretty simple, and that is Saul Griffith wrote the book, The Big Switch. He came up with 33 or 34 kilowatt hours a day for the average family in an all-electric scenario. Queensland, obviously, you've got a little bit higher yield per kilowatt installed than we do down here in Melbourne. But last year, my system managed just 1.3 kilowatt hours per kilowatt installed in winter. So there's no getting past it. If you want to be all electric, the right number is 25 kilowatts on the roof, and basically it doesn't matter which way the panels face, as long as you can string it into the inverter or inverters, then that's what has to be done. But yet we get inquiries all day, every day. Oh, I've got 4 different quotes and I want to all electric my house. I want to get rid of gas, and I've got these 4 quotes for 6.6 kilowatts. And I said, would you mind sharing them with me so that I can contact these companies and ask them how the hell they can run a house on 6.6 kilowatts in winter? I don't think you can run anything with 6.6 kilowatts in winter. It certainly doesn't charge your electric car, and it doesn't heat your house. So I think as an industry, we're missing a whole enormous amount of gas that's being burned across Australia that we should be converting to electric, and we've got to be putting solar systems on the roof to allow for this.
That is true, but cost comes into it as well, Karl. So a lot of middle-class families aren't going to have the money or the appetite to take on finance for a 25 kilowatt system, or they're not going to have the roof space. So I was in Adelaide for a couple of days this week, and I absolutely love Adelaide. I think it's probably one of the most underrated cities in the country. But one of the things I heard there, and I've been hearing around the traps recently, is that residential sales are softening somewhat, and people are a little bit reluctant, which isn't surprising because, you open the media, it's all about interest rates, it's about cost of living. Even people who can afford it now are still looking at it saying, well, Reserve Bank's indicating the interest rates are still going up, consumer confidence comes down. So even if I do have the money, I close the wallet. Even if I can get the finance, I might not do it. So it's softened a bit. I think with the energy cost still going up, that's going to improve. But it's still a cost to people, and it's a mental thing for them to get across. Now, bringing that to Israel and Lliam there, if we implement something that becomes mandatory for sales staff, that becomes a cost to business, which ultimately gets pushed down the line. Now, I had a really interesting chat with Eddie May about this during the week, and Eddie's got some really good ideas, but he was talking about how they take the high road as a business. They do the right thing for the customer. And he said you're operating against cookie cutter operators who have lower cost, run boiler room type operations. And he said, you get the right customer and they will understand the extra value you put in it, but there's still a certain gap in the price that once you go beyond that gap, even the customers who see the value in what you're doing are still going to look at the bottom line and potentially go with the guys who don't have the accreditation, who don't do the right thing. So what do you say to that? We're adding an additional cost. If there's no obligation on everyone to do it, then it's a potential disadvantage for good businesses who take the high ground.
Yeah, well, I guess we once again, like I've been pointing back to, we could apply that argument to existing schemes that we've got in place. And it's going to be interesting the closer we get to with this wind down of STCs, right? Soon, people aren't going to bother, perceivably, there would be opportunity not to worry about getting your install and design accreditation and that sort of thing if you don't have the incentive there to claim STCs. We have seen a bit of entrenchment, obviously, with network supply authorities and that sort of thing requiring an accreditation number for people to be putting Grid Connect applications in. But assuming there's ways to get around that or ways where that's not required, then we could, even with existing schemes, start to see people go, I don't actually need to be accredited anymore. So I wonder how that will play out there as well.
Yeah, and we've got this shit fight starting to appear down in Tasmania right now, right? Because the state government down there has required people who want to get access to one of the government programs. I don't know if it's a loan or a rebate or what it is, but there's a program in Tasmania at the moment, and to get access to that, you need to be an approved solar retailer. And there was a news story that some of the guys down there who were not ASRs got up on primetime news down there saying this is unfair. We don't think the ASR program's worth the paper it's written on. It encourages the bigger companies to come in from across the water and, dump solar in here and then run away. Meanwhile, local companies who've been doing the right thing for many, many years are left out in the dark just because we don't want to pay a substantial amount of money and join up to the ASR. So, it is always a double-edged sword, and you're always going to have different people who have different approaches to it. But, I think there's always room for premium companies who, have a higher overhead because they do all the training, they do all the extra miles, and, they need to recover that. And as long as they can sell that, good on them. And there's always going to be cheap scumbags.
I suppose my comment on, is this an additional cost impost, like as Eddie May was raising as a little bit of a concern, like an additional cost impost? I had looked at that myself. Like for us, just recently, we spent money on professional development.
Sorry, Liam, can I just clarify? Hold that thought. It wasn't Eddie who came up with that, so I was just talking about the cost difference there. So that was actually my idea.
The cost impost there. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
Yep.
The point I was just going to raise about that is just recently for our sales team for the year, we did voluntary professional development with our team, which we spent money to bring somebody in to help with. So I wouldn't look at it that way personally. I do that type of professional development with my team as a voluntary cost. I think it bringing people more up to speed on what's going on, like talking to Robbie from the training division of the Clean Energy Council that developed these new units the other day. We were talking about currency and even talking about installers that might have done their design and install certificate 10, 15 years ago. And nowadays, really what they were taught back then has nothing to really do with what's happening today. And having all these new units out, I know you had a pretty strong opinion on that with currency.
And that will vary from one to another, because those who are currently active in industry are effectively getting education on the job and knowledge and experience. But specifically those who might have done, and this is sort of, I guess, the poor side of training strictly as an industry, if they've sort of done a training level and had certificate from that long ago and haven't been active in industry, and they're just like, oh, I've got my piece of paper I can wave around here, let me back in. That's where it's like, oh, look, it might be worth your while to get some upskilling and a bit of catch up to what's been going on here. I should add as well something I wanted to note before. With these specific units that we were talking about with the site survey, this has actually been tracked by the Clean Energy Council as part of the new accreditation pathways. So that's the other driver, the driving force that will be there as well. So new installers and designers in future will need to actually get these units as well.
And what sort of time frame are you looking at till you've got the course completed and signed off and ready to go?
Yeah, very shortly. We're planning for at least by May to be having enrolments running through. So we're getting excited the closer we get.
Yeah, over time we'll expand on that. So to the point when we are able to take people right through to being CEC designers, that won't be in May. That'll be a little bit further down the track. And then we will be breaking into what was originally the plan, which is the design and install and the battery accreditation courses. Like, one of the main things we identified was our battery attachment rate. Like us as a wholesaler, I think our customer base might be a little bit different than the rest of the industry because we do a lot of sales training on how to sell batteries. We are a technical distributor, so I think our client base are probably more sophisticated battery sales companies than maybe others. But we looked at our battery attachment rate and just went, holy crap, like the amount of batteries that are going out with every system now is absolutely surging. There's 7,000 accredited solar installers out there, but not many of them have a battery ticket. And there's all now getting so many work orders with a battery on them. So I even surveyed a fair few friendly companies we had and said, hey, you got 10 crews of installers. Yeah, 2 have battery tickets. Oh, how are you going at the moment handling all the work orders coming in with batteries? And they said, no, it's becoming a problem. We need to get some more teams accredited. So initially that was our kind of view on what we were going to do with coming into the training space. One thing I want to highlight as well is Supply Partners isn't the RTO itself. We have partnered with an external RTO and we're in the process of acquiring that RTO. But one of the exciting things that and I suppose great things that comes out of us partnering with that RTO is they have combined 40 years worth of compliance experience. So we're coming in, we're not educators. I haven't been running a training business historically, but I'm getting the best people around me. I'm getting a training RTO company here, which has people in it that have been doing it, as I was saying, for combined up to 40 years. I've got Israel, who has been an electrician since 2009, who still installs systems on weekends to this day. So, a lot of trainers out there deliver training every day, but probably don't still install. Israel's still out there installing. I think we've got the best of the best. We've got the best of compliance for RTOs. We've got the best of somebody doing best practice and up to current standards. So, mate, we're excited. We're going to come in, as we said, first of all, with these site survey and promote sustainable practices and some additional short courses from us, which are going to be about best practice and ethics, take people into bin installers, and then we'll be helping more people get battery tickets so we can see all these batteries go in out there with accredited people. And, I'm very confident that this momentum is going to continue. The value proposition for batteries would continue to increase. Vehicle to grid coming up, I'm pumped about that. I think that's a space that I'm really excited about. So, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. New energy training, this training side of our business is our new arm to our company. I'm excited about it. I'm the innovation person here at my business. And as I said, about 2.5 years ago, I was whiteboarding an idea around this, and here we are making it come to fruition. So I'm pumped, mate.
Well, full credit to you, Liam. I would definitely have the debate and say that you've got the best trained technical support staff in the industry.
It's a beautiful compliment, mate. Thank you.
Always a pleasure talking with your guys when I get stuck. It's an amazing pool of talent that you've developed there clearly over a lot of time. And I think you're probably even better at it than major PV or major inverter manufacturers. You've got more knowledge about their products than they do.
Appreciate the comments, mate. That's nice.
Definitely well respected amongst friends and competitors alike. So that's true. Karl, any last questions or comments? We haven't got time for much more.
No, that's all I've got, Luke. Didn't make it to the Fully Charged show, but next weekend I'm headed over to Adelaide myself for a home show. So that should be fun. How about you? What's on the cards the next couple of weeks?
Well, for me, I'm off to Melbourne next week for the Grand Prix. So
Nice.
not solar related, but pretty exciting.
Didn't get that invite, Beattie. What's going on?
Well, quite exactly. I'm going with my dad and my brother, and then Clenergy hit me up and they're like, do you want to come on the Friday? So, just really interesting to see what these guys are doing. And once again, a bit of a shout out for Solar Coaster, the new podcast that's coming out with you guys and some video stuff. You've obviously put some investment into it. So pretty excited to see how that goes for you guys. Nigel, any last comments or questions?
No, see you on the road. We did our calendar the other week and went, oh my goodness, we've got 14 events booked between over the next few months for myself and the team. So we'll see you on the road somewhere. Look forward to buying everyone a beer.
Israel, Liam, thanks for coming on today. Any last comments before you guys finish up?
No, mate, just thank you for having us on your show. We'll have to return the favour with the Solar Coaster at some point if we end up getting the audience you crew have. And it's awesome to see Nigel jumping in. I've been listening to him on another podcast for some time, so now he's all in one. You're all in one spot, so it makes things easy.
I don't know, it'd probably bring down the standard of your show if we came on and reciprocated, mate. But but no, really appreciate you guys coming on as well. And good luck with everything, with the training and also with the podcast and just generally, just echoing Karl's sentiments. You guys are very well respected. There's been a technical operator, an ethical operator, and full respect to you guys.
I had another thought, Luke, maybe for another week, but maybe we should end our shows like Landline with some beef and cattle and sheep pricing, except we'd be talking about solar panels and inverters for the week.
Hey, could be a good idea, Karl, could be.
There's a job for you, Karl. Look forward to that next episode.
Where do you gather the data from? Actually, I spoke to Warwick from Sunwiz today.
There you go.
Lots of data and lots of exciting things happening in our industry at the moment.
Well, thanks, guys, for coming on, and thanks for listening. Please click subscribe, like, share. Remember, Solar Coaster's coming out, so keep an eye out for that. Have a good one. Thanks.